You're talking about a topic that nobody ever wants to talk about, and that is dealing with violent children. And I'm not just talking about emotionally aggressive, but physically violent. Unfortunately, in our community of clients and people here, we have many children in the midst of high conflict. Saying she can't join. Let me try it again. Uh, Many children whose parents are involved in high conflict divorces, custody battles, and very tricky co-parenting situations. There we go. Okay.
Uh,
So we're going to try it again. And I know. And so we're welcoming back Tosha Schore. She is the founder of Parenting Boys Peacefully. And just to skip right again to the intro, we had mentioned how extraordinarily common it is for children, both boys and girls, to be violent at various points in their lives. But Tasha, you were in the midst of saying how you came to this work. Can you start again with what led you to Parenting Boys Peacefully?
yeah, well, there are a couple stories I like to tell. Maybe I'll tell a different one, just for variety. Uh, one way that I came to this work is that when my boys were little, and I have three boys who are now young adults and all thriving, knock wood. And I had dropped them at school and come home, and I was just, having a cup of tea and reading the paper before I started my work day. And I noticed that it was just sort of one horrible thing after another, right? It was rape, and it was terror attacks, and it was um, school shootings, just one thing after another. And I noticed that all of this aggression and violence was perpetrated by men. And I thought, what is going on here, right? I have these three sweet boys, and how do I parent them in such a way that I sort of give them the best chance of not ending up there?
Right.
Because there's no correlation, right? It's all men. So I thought, let me flip this around. And what if I could work with parents and show them and show myself that we actually have an opportunity as parents of young boys who are struggling with hotter behaviors to help them get through them when they're young so that they don't grow up and hurt others. So that was a real sort of personal draw. And then, of course, I had three boys, so they were aggressive with one another, sometimes with me, and I really wanted to be able to learn how to advocate for them, sometimes despite their behavior, despite behaviors that I realized weren't okay. I didn't condone them, but I wasn't willing to cancel them or just throw the baby out with the bathwater. I loved
Yeah.
them dearly. Figure it out. I had to walk that gray area. And as we all know, people don't like to walk in gray areas. Everything's black and white. It's much more tidy that way, but that's just not what human beings are like.
Right. Don't you love the question, why don't you just do this?
If I could just, I would have just done it already.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so what about are there certain predictors of violence or aggression in children? Do you see certain maybe situations that lead more to kids getting aggressive?
Well, what I see is that I see kids when their fears are high, they can sort of tend more towards aggression. So fear looks all kinds of ways. For example, I mean, when I was young, I know you deal with divorce. When I was young, I was 5. My parents divorced, and we moved, right? My life was completely shut down. I was moved to a new state, a new community. My dad was no longer around. And I was very, very angry.
Mhm.
And I acted out. I acted out in school. I acted out towards my mom, and so there's that kind of fear that I see a lot. Fear that comes with sort of change that you didn't ask for and you had no control over. And it's not that the divorce wasn't a good idea, but or wasn't the right thing for my parents, but I certainly had a lot of feelings about that, and I needed somebody who could help me through. So change like that. Um, I see aggression pop up a lot when there is a new sibling born.
Hmm.
So moves, siblings, divorces, any sort of change. Because kids who are prone to aggression tends to be more rigid. They're the ones that have a harder time with things not going their way or going differently than they went the day before.
Oh, that's so interesting. What about so that's like a situational thing, obviously, like a divorce or a move or a new sibling. What about is there a difference between like stress outbursts versus like really serious longer term patterns that might indicate something darker and deeper that's not just based on, okay, this happened and things are going to get settled down?
Yeah, I mean, I think all of us have been aggressive at certain times, right? If we're honest with ourselves, we have
Yeah.
perhaps yelled at somebody or spoken to somebody in an aggressive tone, or maybe we grabbed our child too hard when we were furious, or um, there are all sorts of things that we adults do when we're poorly resourced, we're running on empty, and we're stressed, right? And so if something like that happens once in your lifetime or twice in your lifetime, I would say you're normal, right?
Mhm.
If you're noticing behaviors like that in yourself or in your child that are happening on a regular basis, then I would say that's a problem that we need to address, right? So if you can see a pattern, and often you'll find it because you'll notice yourself going, oh God, he's coming back from his dad's today. I hope he doesn't, you know, throw the remote, or I hope he doesn't break the TV, or I hope he doesn't kick me, or I hope he doesn't cuss me out, or whatever. Well, you're probably saying that because last week when he came back from his dad's, that's what happened. And the week before, that's what happened. And the week before that, and the week before that. So if that's the situation, then I would say there's a pattern, and that's something that we just want to deal with.
Mhm. All right, so let's say it's happening, there is a pattern, and now my kid is coming back and they are furious. What can I do in that moment? Is there anything to de-escalate as a kid is like screaming at me or pushing me, something like that?
Yeah. So first order of business is always to keep everybody safe, and that everybody includes us. So if the situation, I mean, obviously I have to preface this by saying I would need to talk to you individually, right? Every situation is so unique. So this is just very general, but
Mhm.
I want you to keep yourself safe. I want you to keep your child safe. I want you to keep the things safe. So if your child is pushing you, for example, and won't stop, you could put yourself on the other side of a door, like go into a bathroom and stay on the other side of the door so that your child is maybe, banging on the door, knocking on the door. Do I want my kid banging my door and denting the door in? Not really. Do I prefer that to being scratched or hit or punched or whatever? Absolutely.
Mhm.
Because one, I don't want you getting hurt. But two, I don't want your child having that, in quotation marks, success, like
Mm.
hurting, because even though they might act on the surface like they care deeply, and there's a huge amount of shame and guilt that settles in when they hurt you, and then they feel worse
Great.
about themselves, and then the worse they feel about themselves, the worse they behave. So we start spiraling down. So we want to, first order of business is keep everybody safe. Sometimes door. Like maybe you could just, hold a big pillow in between you and your child. It really depends on the age of your child. There's so many, the size, right, strength. There's so much that this is dependent upon. But really, you just want to keep yourself safe. And the other thing that I'll just say is, I would recommend saying as little as possible. So
Mm.
tendency in those situations is to want to talk our child down, right? Let's
Mhm.
talk a lift kind of a thing. We can't talk anybody out of feelings, right? We can feel our way out of thinking. We do that all the time, all of us, right? Us out of our thinking. But we can't think our way out of feeling. We can't convince our child that they shouldn't be angry that we left dad, or that we had another child, or that they have a ton of homework today, or whatever it is,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
To feel a certain way. So the best thing to do is to not try to do that, is to just recognize, okay, they have feelings and they are entitled to those feelings. They get to have those feelings. There is nothing wrong with the feelings. There is something wrong with hurting you or anybody else, right? We want to make sure that doesn't happen. But the feelings themselves are completely normal. And if we can hold safe space for them to be able to process them, we'll see the aggression reduce over time. The intensity will lessen, and so will the frequency.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting that you said earlier about how if they hurt you, they feel a sense of shame. Because
Terrible.
I think we don't think that that's true. I think a lot of parents think that there is no guilt, there is no shame. They wanted to hurt me, and they're
No,
happy that they hurt me.
no.
And then we
That's a
forgive them.
front. Right? I hear that all the time. We hear that in schools. We hear that a lot, and
Mhm.
parents will say, he got in trouble at school. He and his friend got in a fight, and he pushed him. And when I tried to talk to him about it, he just laughed. He doesn't even
Mm,
care.
yeah.
No, laughter. You heard of nervous laughter? Nervous laughter is a real thing. It's called nervous laughter because we're nervous or scared when we're laughing, right? So that laughter doesn't mean I don't care. I want to hurt my friend. That laughter means I did something that scared the bejesus out of me, and I'm not really sure what to do now.
Mm. Yeah, really important to remember. And also, when you were saying not to try to talk a kid out of, talk them down in the midst of one of these episodes, we just went to a conference in the United Kingdom last week, and it was called Bridging the Gap. And in it, Bill Eddy was talking about how he actually had a brain and talked about the different sides of the brain and how when I can't remember if it's your right brain goes off, like you can't make clear decisions. And so it's pointless to try to talk to someone when they're so emotional.
Yeah, it's your back brain, it's your limbic system, right? The emotional state of emotion versus your cortex, the prefrontal cortex, where we plan and we basically all the good behaviors, what we would label as good behaviors, happen because we're thinking clearly with the cortex. But that's what I was saying before, we can't sort of talk ourselves out of feelings because once that limbic system is flooded, it's shooting stress hormones into the cortex, and we're just running on emotion. We've all been there. We've seen people running on emotion, and it looks like there's nobody home,
Mhm.
right? Nobody home. It's because there's nobody home.
Yeah.
So talking in those moments makes no sense. All it does is get everybody more and more wound up. So the best thing that you can do is keep everyone safe and listen through.
Hmm. Okay, so let's say I'm on the other side of the bathroom. I've got a furious, aggressive child on the other side of the door. I'm not saying anything. What do I do next?
Hmm. So I would say that it's a good idea to keep communication happening. So it's not that you can't say anything at all, but I want you to just say minimal, speak minimally.
Yeah.
So what I do find helps a lot is to every once in a while just let them know that you're there and calm. And so the tone is what's important. So you might say something like, if he quiets down or she quiets down, right? You might say, "I'm right here," and then just be quiet. And
Mhm.
oftentimes enough of a little spark to get them going again, right? They'll be
Mhm.
angry, come out of here, blah 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 blah, blah, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Um, and again, you just go back into listening. And this is actually a tool that we call stay listening that we write about in our book, Listen.
Hmm.
Um, just staying with the child and not trying to fix them or talk them out of their feelings or give them suggestions for how to be different or feel different, but just really stay present with the feelings so that the body can work its way through them. So every once in a while when the child quiets, you can just say, "I'm right here, sweet boy. I'm right here, sweet girl," something like that. So the
Hmm.
tone, loving, which really contradicts how they're feeling, and allows them to release more and more feelings. And if you do this long enough, well, I will say something else. Sometimes people will like write notes under doors. That's worked really well for people.
Really?
So yeah, so they'll
Like what? What
like
would
just
you even
slide,
say?
like just draw a heart and just slide it under the,
Really? That's so interesting.
or just say I love you and slide it up under the door, or we're gonna get through this, slide it under the door. And
Wow.
a lot of parents actually find that sliding back and forth, kids at first might be a little hesitant, but then many of them will actually lean into that. Some parents even then from that develop a journal where they write back and forth to one another about things that are sometimes just too hard to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, what I love about that too is it's got a built-in pause.
Yeah, this is all about one giant pause, right? Because our pull is talk about it, stop, stop hitting me, don't do that, if you do that one more time, this is going to happen or that's going to happen. We don't want to go there because all the consequences do, for example, is create a rift in the relationship. They push your child away, and that is exactly the opposite of what your child needs. Their child needs to know that you're going to be there no matter what, that you're in it through the thick and the thin, that you're not going to get confused by their behavior, that you're going to keep loving them, that there's nothing that they can do that's going to make you push them away. You're going to keep them close and you're going to get through together. That is the message that they need to be getting. Not that when, you're in a hard place, you need to go figure it out and come back when you're feeling better. That is not the message.
I was just about to ask you your feelings regarding timeouts because I remember you talking about this.
Yeah, I am big anti timeout. That doesn't mean we don't need breaks from one another, but I think, when you mentioned at the beginning, my business is Parenting Boys Peacefully. I work a lot with parents of young boys, and I feel really strongly that we need to change the message that we're sending our young boys and young men, which is that, you need to act in a certain way. And if you don't, you need to figure it out by yourself because they are isolating themselves. And instead, we need to be sending the message that it is brave and strong to ask for help when you need it, right? I have a friend right now whose son is struggling with anxiety, and I was texting her yesterday, and she was telling me, "Oh, well, he reached out to his therapist, and he reached out to another resource at school. And he's going to be meeting with this one. He's going to be meeting with that one." And my response was, "It is so beautiful that he is actively reaching out to the resources that you have made him aware of, right? That he knows are out there for him, and he is asking for help. That is the biggest win, right?
Yeah.
Because all hit hard spots all throughout our lives, and we need help. We deserve help getting through. We don't need to do this alone, and we don't want our kids feeling like they need to do it alone either. And when we're adults, right, we can pay for a therapist, we can pay for resources, pay for a support group. We have control of our time, of our finances, everything. Our kids don't have that. They have us. So if you think about it that way, we're kind of all of that for them, which is
Yeah.
a big job, but it doesn't mean we can't do it. We're up to the task. I've seen it done thousands and thousands and thousands of times. But what it does mean is that we need to keep ourselves in what I like to call good enough parenting shape. We don't have to be perfect, but we do have to put ourselves first so that when he does come home from dad and he starts the kicking or the cussing out or the whatever, we can take a second and go like, okay, yeah, Tasha said just stay quiet and stay safe, okay? Great. I'm gonna go in the kitchen, close the door, and and just be quiet for a minute until I catch my breath and figure out what's my next move.
Yeah. So another thing that you're kind of touching on a bit is the level of disrespect. I think a lot of us were raised in homes where disrespect was not tolerated.
Mm-hmm.
And it's different generation now. How do I process if my kid is like screaming and cursing at me and saying the worst things ever, especially, that we only deal with like the craziest divorce and co-parenting situations when I feel like it's my ex's voice coming right out of my child's mouth and
Yeah.
they're so disrespectful. How do I address that?
Right. So that's your work, right? So that's your work that you need to do so that you can separate because that is not your ex, that is your child,
Mhm.
and you are their mother, and they deserve to have you 100% present for them, even when they're in a hard place. You're the adult, right? We are the adults in this situation. If we are expecting our children to take the lead, we're not going to have much success. We're going to
Mm.
have to do that are uncomfortable. And they include letting go of that sort of demand for respect when our child is in that spiral. That doesn't mean that we don't value respect. It doesn't mean that we don't teach respect, but it does mean that we don't ask the impossible. So if you go back to the brain, right, that limbic system is flooding the cortex, and that child cannot think all they're feeling is fury, what are you going to talk to them about? Like,
Mm.
what get? You're going to get nowhere. So demanding respect is asking them to do something that they can't do. It's like if your kid comes home with a broken arm and has a paper to write, and the arm's in a cast on their right arm and they're right-handed and they can't hold a pen. You're not going to scream at them and say, or threaten them and say, if you don't pick up that pen and write the paper right now, no iPad for the rest of the week or whatever. You can't go out with your friends tonight. You're not going to do that. You're going to get creative and go like, okay, well, they can't really hold the pen, so how can we get this paper written? Do you want to dictate it to me and I'll write it? Do you want to use AI and dictate it to the computer and whatever? Like, we get creative.
Mm-hmm.
We get when it's physical, it's easy for us to see. So if that helps you as a parent to think about a physical situation where your child is sort of held back from being able to do something, then think about that in these emotional situations, because it's the same thing, but it's just his brain or her brain, right? So it's like they can't respect you in this moment. It doesn't mean they don't respect you. It doesn't mean that they don't know respect is important. It doesn't mean that they're not going to be able to respect you in even 10 minutes from now.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, the fastest way to get them back to being able to respect you is to respect their inability in the moment to do that and hold space for them. I like to tell parents, put on your spacesuit. Just like pretend like you're in a big, got that big white spacesuit and nothing can hurt you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't have to say anything. Just be present. Like, think of just a one-liner, like, we're gonna get through this, or I love you, or you're you. Do not name emotions. Do not name emotions. I can almost guarantee you that that will be like putting lighter fluid on the fire, and the
Give
rate.
us examples of mistakes, like naming emotions that you've.
Oh, I'm sorry you're so angry at me. Well, I'm not angry at you. You're just a bleep, I'm
Yeah.
not. It just doesn't help. It
Yeah.
doesn't help. Let them name their own emotions if they want to, but don't name them for them. It's not the time to do that.
Yeah, that makes sense. What about in the spaces between violent outbursts? Are there things that you can do to start working on it? I mean, we know that when people are calm, you can get a lot more done.
Absolutely. Yeah. So what I would say is, I mean, always your sort of your target, excuse me, is going to be connection. That bullseye is like connection. So even in the
Mhm.
hard moments we were talking about before, if you can just go like, okay, how can I connect with the child? How can I get them to see that I'm on their side? We're not at war. I'm on their side. We're going to get through this together. Um,
Mhm.
in the spaces in between, even better. How can I connect with that child? So think to yourself, and maybe even just brainstorm a list. What are some things that we do together, or some situations where we laugh,
Mhm.
where we feel close to one another, where I feel like I love my kid? Because they're probably feeling the same way towards you if you're feeling that way towards them, right? So
Mhm.
make those kind of things and just do more of them. I would say do lots of rough and tumble play.
Hmm.
Younger, like, play is great. Pillow fights. I love those indoor snowballs. I'm a big fan of those indoor snowballs you can just get online, and they have that really yummy somatic feeling, like you squish them and they go like a real snowball.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can throw them in the house and you can like pelt each other with them super hard, and it doesn't hurt and it doesn't break things. And so it's a great resource for kids who are in a hard place and families who are going through hard times. I just tell parents, leave them out in the living room or out in the kitchen, out somewhere where it's just people can grab them, and just do a lot of that play. You can put your kids on sheets, and if you have a soft floor, like not a soft floor, but like a smooth floor, like a hardwood floor or linoleum, drag them around on a sheet,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Love that.
On the age of the child. But physical play. I mean, also board games and that stuff. That's great too. But anything that's like a physical where you're there's sort of bodies involved and you're sweating and you're laughing and you're bonking into each other, like that kind of thing is really good for building trust and building connection. And then I would also really encourage regular special time. And special time is another tool that we write about in our book. And it's a unique kind of one-on-one time. It doesn't have to be an hour, it could be 5 minutes, but you set a timer and you basically say, hey, I'm all yours, we can do whatever you want. And they
Mhm.
become, and you become the follower. And in a situation, especially like the situations that your parents are going through, where the child has no control, right? Their world is falling apart and they have no control. To have 5 minutes or 10 or 15 minutes, a day or every other day or whatever the weekend, whenever you see them, whatever you can do, um, is a real opportunity for them to have control of their time and to ultimately give you a glimpse into their world. It's kind of a window into their world.
Mhm.
So they will oftentimes share, if you do special time regularly, they will oftentimes share what's going on with them through words, through play, if you're not trying to sort of co-opt the lead and take over the play. So parents, I'm sure, come to you, they come to me all the time, how do I get my kid to talk to me? They won't talk about what's going on. I know they're upset. You can't force somebody to talk, but this is a great way to invite them to share when they're ready. And that's a very different feeling. Like if I say to you, tell me what's going on, tell me what's going on, that's a very different feeling than if I, hang out with you. Let's say I invite you over for dinners on Friday nights and you come over for a few weeks and then suddenly you start sharing like what's going
Mhm.
on right? It's the difference between kind of a forced, hey, let me in on it, versus I'm here if you want to talk. Like I can handle this. I want to be moving through this with you. I want to support you. It's a very different energy. And that's the
Yeah.
kind of energy special time where it's just like, hey, you lead, I follow. Whatever you want to do, we do. And you don't try to get them to play a certain way or tell you a
Mhm.
certain thing. You really follow their lead, you will likely end up with a lot of information that you wouldn't get otherwise.
Yeah, and it makes so much sense, especially when you compare it to what it feels like when someone's like, "Tell me what's going on." I mean, the instinct is, I don't want to."
Right, or sometimes you're just not ready, or it's not the right environment. It's like when we're in a hard spot, we want to be in control of when we go to that, go deeper.
Mhm.
Right? Or if we're going through a hard divorce, for example, like we're carrying that with us all the time, and we might be on the verge of tears, or the verge of anger, and we're trying to sort of function as we move through our workday, let's say. And then if somebody sort of comes in and butts in and says like, "Hey, what's up with your divorce?" That's their they're making the choice to sort of move you towards a space that maybe you're trying to kind of stay a little bit away from so you can get through your workday and like wait till you get to your therapist's office or whatever it is. So it's not that we don't want to be curious about other people or show them that we care, but I think we can be a lot more careful about inadvertently kind of forcing others to think about or feel things that they're not wanting to focus on in that moment.
Yeah, yeah. Tasha, I always love our conversations because I love that you give such practical, actionable advice and
Yeah,
things that we ourselves can relate to as human beings. So it's not just like how a child feels, that empathy of being able to imagine yourself in the same scenario. I think it resonates really well. So tell us about the book and how people can find you and your programs.
absolutely. So, yes, I have a book that I co authored with my mentor, Patty Wipfler. It's called Listen: 5 Simple Tools to Meet Your Everyday Parenting Challenges. If you are wanting to parent using connection based strategies and really let go of the control over methodologies because you're feeling like they're not getting you the results that you want, that you're feeling a rift between you and your kid, I highly suggest that you read it. It's written really with younger kids in mind, maybe up to age 10, but even if you have a teen, you can read it and pull out the core concepts and absolutely apply them. I always remember a dad that I worked with in Scotland who he said to me at the end, he said, I came to you because I wanted to have a better relationship with my son, but like I can't believe how this has changed the way that I interact with my partner and also with my colleagues at work.
Mhm.
I didn't realize how horrible of a listener I was. He's like, so yes, it will be relevant. And then to find me, my website is parentingboyspeacefully.com or toshashore.com. I'm in both of that places. And if you're wanting to get sort of a step-by-step head start on how to start a practice of special time, that one-on-one time that I just talked about. There's a free 10-day reconnect on my website that you can pop into if you go to Parenting Boys Peacefully and grab that. Yeah, and I have one-on-one coaching. You can reach out if you're not sure what you want or feel like I want to work with you, but I'm not quite sure how. Just shoot me an email at hello@parentingboyspeacefully.com, and I'm happy to chat.
Great. And you write the best newsletters.
Aw, thank
You
you.
do. All right. Well, thank you so much, Tosha, for coming back on again. Your information is so relevant to many people here.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for inviting me back.
Okay. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.